But we got to talk a lot of tech in that last one. Almost like we were getting ready for our check. The tech.
Bow, 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 bow. Nice.
We in different ways, but that's where it works. The horns. It was both horns. So,
Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Nah.
meow, 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 meow.
I made that joke
Uh,
like one time over the pandemic, and ever since then, I was like, well, I can't unhear this now.
yeah, it's gonna be ingrained.
Yeah. You want to take the first one?
Yeah, I'll take the first one.
Alrighty.
Hey, y'all have seen a carrier map? You know, Verizon saying it has the best coverage, T-Mobile saying they have the best coverage, and they show a pink or red map. AT&T shows a blue map. Sprint used to show yellow, so they're no longer existed. Just telling you how good their coverage is in various spaces. We've never really had although there's been some sites that have tried to compile third-party data on that. We've never really had a good explanation of how is the broadband separated out across the country by the various carriers. And the FCC's previous version of this was abjectly terrible. I know I shouldn't say abjectly, but it's as close as objectively bad as you can be. For example, Engadget noted, as they write an article on this coverage map, that even the current map's not perfect, but to give you a comparison of how bad the other one was, like we currently can't see the 5G build outs, although those are really springing up pretty fast when this was being built. So understandable. Maybe the next pass will add the 5G map. But Microsoft in 2019 had estimated that 163 million Americans couldn't access the internet at or above broadband speeds, which is what this current map shows you. So at least 5 megabytes download and 1 megabytes upload from a mobile carrier. So just mobile. At that time, on the FCC's previous map, they had put the number closer to 25 million. That's a problem.
Oops.
So the current map, which was supplied through the Broadband Data Act, which enabled the FCC to be able to get more robust and get more access and more information than they'd had previously, allowed them to create a more extensive map. So you can kind of see this. So you'd equate this more to like your as a carrier able to at least do a minimum like from 3G to 4G, and I assume updates will come later that will add like what is the actual 5G capacity in a particular area. We're getting much more accurate numbers off this map than we ever had before.
Well, that's much better because it's a pretty big oopsie doopsie.
What is that? 138 million difference? Yeah. My good Lord, that is bad.
That's like a put a comma in the wrong space kind of thing.
Yeah. What's up next? You're gonna tackle Facebook.
Yeah. So, to add to the list of other sketchulous, detulous things that Facebook has done, so Facebook disabled the accounts of New York University researchers who were investigating misinformation and political ads on the platform and claimed that it did so to comply with a consent decree from the Federal Trade Commission. However, Facebook's claim that the FTC ordered it to suspend the researchers' research is false. The FTC Bureau of Consumer Protection acting director Samuel Levine wrote in a letter to Facebook. Wrote in a letter to Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg on Thursday. The FTC order did require Facebook to create a privacy program, but there's no requirement that would have forced Facebook to shut down NYU's research project. In spite of that, Facebook's statement said that they suspended the accounts to, quote, put them in line with our privacy program under the FTC order, which conveys the false message that they had no choice in the matter. But in actuality, the FTC didn't. Their requirement to fulfill that privacy program is not stepping on this. Like, the research group is simply doing research to determine what kind of misinformation that the Facebook algorithms and ad algorithms help perpetrate. So two of the researchers at New York University, Laura Eldson and Damon McCoy, basically researched Facebook using a tool they created called Ad Observer, which is a quote unquote browser plugin that they and others created that allows consenting Facebook users to voluntarily share data with the researchers. Limited and anonymous information about the political ads that are shown to them on the platform.
Did you say voluntarily? What?
Indeed, it's an opt-in kind of tool. One thing that you can do, so as somebody who's developed apps for Facebook, you can develop apps for Facebook. It's not as big as it used to be, but if you remember back in like the Farmville days or whatever, it's kind of similar to that. But there's still apps that are floating around that you can use and utilize. Some external tools that still integrate with Facebook that you can utilize. So that kind of stuff. But those are things that you have to opt into, and you ask what things from your Facebook profile that you would like access to. And you can do it that way. They might have done theirs a different way. I don't know about the nitty gritty of the integration, but just a little bit of insight. Facebook's action cut off the access that the researchers used to quote unquote uncover systematic flaws in the Facebook ad library to identify misinformation in the political ads, including many sowing distrust in the electoral and in the election system, and to study Facebook's apparent amplification of partisan misinformation. Elson said, quote, by suspending our accounts, Facebook's tried to shut down all of this work. And Facebook suspended my Facebook account and the accounts of several people associated with the Cybersecurity for Democracy, which is their team at NYU. Also, I'll interject. This is all from a what's the ARS Technica article. So this is all research that's Ars Technica article. This is all research that's already been done. So just to make sure that we're not presenting this as like this is what we uncovered, not at all, but just where we're counting it. So Facebook countered saying that their ad observer program was basically generated to like avoid their detection systems and scrape data and do all this other kinds of sus actions. And the researchers parried back that they don't collect any information that's not already publicly available. You can simply, when you have an app, you can just ask for that information and say like, oh, can I have access to your photos or XYZ or your feed or blah, 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 blah. You can do all those things with an app when you make it. And that's stuff you ask for that your app utilizes. So they're not scraping anything. This, at least to me, as somebody who has made an app, there's a very above board process for doing this. And it doesn't seem like anything that they're asking for is stuff that you would need to be stealing. Or doing it suspiciously. Unsurprisingly, Facebook admitted, yeah, you're actually right. The FTC's order didn't require us to do that. I think the phrase itself was, it's Facebook's privacy program, not the consent decree itself that prohibits what the Ad Observer team has been doing. And then they cited that, there's some subsection XYZ that like, oh, you can't collect data without permission or something like that. But it's basically what what the sum of it all is. They're well within their rights as a group that just made an application to retrieve data from users for research purposes to continue doing so. As you might expect, Facebook did not reinstate their admissions or permissions on Facebook. And for the writer of this article, John Brodkin, when he reached out to them, they did respond, but did not answer the question. So about par for the course.
The old, I acknowledge your question exists, but the I'm not gonna answer it.
It's like, oh man, what a great question. And what kind of place would we be without great questions? We've asked many great questions over time, which have made us a great people in turn. Next question.
And you're like, what? It's like, gave him the old Texas shuffle.
Hit him with the old razzle dazzle.
Well, we're not ready for the razzle dazzle. Oh man. I'm not surprised. Facebook does not want anyone critiquing their privacy actions. And they've been getting hit over the head on Capitol Hill, the European Union watchdogs. We talked about Amazon last week, even though that fine was kind of ridiculous. That was not enough of fine.
No.
But there's been a lot more pushback from foreign and domestic governments on this. So I'd be kind of curious to see if anyone takes this up, the FTC, or if like another committee takes this up. Not even just specifically for these researchers, but just overall
silencing of basically developing a means to hold Facebook accountable, because as we've talked about before, like they're like, and they make a valid point that they aren't the only contributor of misinformation of pandemic and COVID related informations, so they can't be held solely responsible. However, they do share some of that accountability, and this research would serve to prove said accountability, and they really, really don't want that. So basically, they need to be forced to permit it.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Next up, and at least wise Amazon news, if they're making a smart decision, Amazon was going to ask employees to return this or next month in September of this year. But with the Delta variant having increases across the world, that in-office return has been pushed to January 3rd, 2022. At the time, it would have been that employees would have been required to wear masks inside the office unless they have shown proof that they are vaccinated. The company has stated, and also when they do return, that's the expectation as well. And again, I guess hopefully Amazon will continue to make adjustments, and also any other tech giants, because we reported on Apple 2 or 3 weeks ago about their push to get back in the building and the friction that was causing with employees that had gotten used to the work from home environment. So I'm hoping more companies will be flexible with that, and just let people make individual choices for that. Especially for buildings that you own. Like, I can understand in a lease agreement situation where it's like releasing X amount of space, especially for a small business, that might be more like they would have more stake to claim of like, well, maybe we really need to downsize the building if we're not gonna, so yeah, I get it from their perspective, but when you built your own campus out,
it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Like it is you're paying for it regardless. So them coming in or not, it's not going to.
It doesn't change the bottom line.
Yeah. Let's see what is next.
I'm
gonna take the blockchain.
Okay. So
the one of the for the board of governors for the Federal Reserve System, Christopher Waller, the Fed governor, stated that he quote wasn't convinced that using a digitally backed any kind of digital currency for the U.S. would make sense or solve existing problems, and that, quote, privately issued coins currently, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin of all places, would be fine for now. Though he did note that the stability that would come from a more, what's considered like a stable coin, something that's backed in a government-controlled, government-backed digital currency, as opposed to the current private issued coins. Now, he did make oddly, he had a comment on security, which is a little weird. Now, I'm not going to give a whole blockchain primer. You can go check that out on YouTube. There's some good intro videos on how security of blockchain works. But generally, there is just a natural security that comes from blockchain. It's not perfect. There could be some ways to circumvent that, but his comments on it just didn't quite. He threw out an issue of like we could be more vulnerable, and I don't know. It didn't. I think someone should talk to him about how blockchain works. And now, if he's aware of like if he's saying that the other vulnerabilities that could be exposed are a possibility, sure, but you also need more resources and manpower to pull some things off like that. You'd almost need some nationally backed energy and attention to be able to pull off some kind of attack like that. Almost like a China Russia level grade attack to be able to flip the authentication of the blockchain on its head to say something otherwise. So
yeah, you need the skills to pay the bills to be short.
So, yeah, I get what he's saying, that someone could do this, but this is not going to be an everyday hacker that it's like, I stole your money.
I stole all the money in the world.
It's like, no, that's not how this happens. All right.
Where's my notes? Where'd it go? Where are we at? Here we go. Yeah. Sprint's LTE network is turning off on June 30th, 2022. So, due to Sprint's and T-Mobile's LTE merger and the shift to Google Mobile's GSM network, many of the Sprint towers have either already been converted over, or users have upgraded or swapped their phones. Like the T-Mobile 5G push keeps continuing. This also means that the call and the standardized messaging capability that's previously was handled on Sprint phones by their CMDA network is also going to be cut off, which is going to happen earlier in January of 2022. So if you got old phones and you're on Sprint slash T-Mobile, and you've been putting off that upgrade for a real long time, it's probably time to get off the system, simply because the system's not going to be around anymore. So if ever there was a reason to upgrade, the simple fact that like your stuff's not going to be supported anymore is probably a really good reason.
Yeah. Now, a lot of flagship phones like your LGs, Samsungs, and I believe Apple does this as well. I don't follow their internal instructions as much. Because I'm more of on Samsung. But a lot of them had dual antennas anyway. So if you're a T-Mobile customer, what they were doing was just giving you a new SIM to activate the GSM portion. And if you're like, what are these acronyms? So GSM versus CDMA are just two different protocols of how cellular data and the bandwidths that they could be talked on happens across the U.S. and also overseas as well. Although they're more CDMA, if I remember correctly. I think it could be the other way around. Anyway, so AT&T, T-Mobile traditionally were GSM, Sprint and Verizon were traditionally CDMA. So that's generally how you could think about it. So if you switch between carriers around the same networks, you could keep the same phone, just switch out the SIM. If you switch to one of the other ones, you're probably going to have to get a different phone back in the day because they just didn't have.
I remember that.
Yeah, no one was putting two antennas on a phone back then. They're like, we're not doing that.
That's redundant.
Yeah. And because so much is relied on data now anyway, really people are focusing on your LTE and the ability to operate on 5G antenna, which relies less on those two standards. But having that a lot of your calls can still be handled, if you're in a bad area that doesn't have good 5G, it's going to default to what's around here, CDMA or GSM, cool. And I'll link into that and then be able to still patch your phone call or send your text message, even if you don't have a good data signal. So
yeah, you can still work around it.
Cool. Next up, sexism. Twice in one show.
Right. I mean, so I was thinking about why are we hearing about this now? If the actions of another group of individuals can help fuel or provide motivation for other people who are also being oppressed in their workplace or disregarded or disrespected, and helps encourage them to stand up, then absolutely I'm all for it. So the fact that it's happening is not something I'm down with, but I know it's happening. I know it's a constant thing. So the fact that I'm hearing about it, that's what I'm at least glad to hear.
Yeah. So an Apple program manager has been placed on administrative leave after calling out workplace sexism. And something I would add to that, this is not a knock on the Verge at all, but this would be like calling out workplace sexism for the second time. And they've been doing multiple, I guess what I'm trying to say is there was an initial wave of them trying to call this out within Apple, and then this is a second attempt. But there's been multiple conversations that have happened in between that first wave and then this continuation that's happened. So they've been on it for a while. So Ashley Gojovic was placed on administrative leave. They are a senior engineering program manager, and were raising concern about toxicity, sexism inside their workplace, specifically from their section, although they've mentioned other things that have happened company-wide. You can go check out their Twitter feed, which has them recounting different things that have happened, and particularly in their interview with The Verge and things they post on their Twitter, was just about the interactions they've had with their higher-ups and how it was handled. they offered different ways that this could possibly be remediated and handled, which Apple did not choose to pursue. They pursued like the least likely option, which he also offered as an opportunity of, as this was being worked out, that yeah, I guess you could put me on administrative leave, but that's just not. That's not really fixing the problem. So if you check out her Twitter, she lists out the issues of like, here's my direct heads, the people that are directly over me, like immediate supervisors. Do you need to have some conversations with them? HR needs to work with them. Apple chose not to do that. It chose to put her on leave. They additionally, in that time frame, also said, we do not want you to access your Slack channels, because Ashley had also been very vocal on their Slack channels in the lead up to this and previously about issues that were happening. So they were not hiding anything about what was going on. Like as soon as something happened, they were very immediate to, hey, this incident happened. This thing happened. So this is likely,
and you need to address it.
Yeah, and this is not being tackled.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely check out The Verge. This one came out on the 4th, so you can check out their interview with Ashley on and everything they talked about. You can also check out her Twitter feed for additional details on different threads and different pieces of this that have happened. But it sounds like the administrative leave is being used as a way to just hush them up for a while and hopefully kind of like douse the fire out. And that's rather sad.
Yeah. I am disappointed that anybody has to deal with that anywhere, but I'm glad that that there are at least some cases where somebody says something and like the news is willing to, help them boost the story to hopefully get some actual what's the word I'm looking for? Amicable resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And not every company is going to be extra bad like Activision Blizzard, where you basically need to like yeet out the entire executive board. Like there are like intermediate things that you can that you can do that isn't a quote unquote nuclear option. But if you're not even handling the small stuff, then you have no hope of handling like medium sized problems or big problems. And then you end up like Activision Blizzard, where everything, pun intended, or pun unintended, that's the one, pun unintended, snowballs out of control, and then you have problems like the one that they're in right now, where they let people do anything, and now you have 5,000 workers who are signing a petition denouncing that, your public statement is not sufficient and does not address the concerns. And you have tons of lawsuits, and you have tons of investors that are actually suing you, and tons of sponsors who were leaving you and so forth. This could have been avoided if you had just fired people when they told you what was happening.
Yeah. I don't think they see anything wrong.
It's a shame, but the what's the word I'm looking for? The investors and so forth like have to be the people who are like those are the people who can kick out executives. You can as a board of investors, you can squash out pretty much whomever you want and bring in whomever you want. So like that's got to be what they have to do. Like you have to look past the interpersonal stuff of like who and all that stuff, and just do what's right for the people and what's right for the company.